Just a quick warning before the video starts, this video does contain some talks about death, grief, and some graphic imagery. If any of those things are sensitive to you, I suggest you skip this video. It also contains spoilers for Stranger Things Season 5, Episode 1, so I suggest you go watch that if you haven't yet. Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Welcome. This is gonna be fun. This starts my deep dive into Stranger Things Season 5. Before I get into the video, I really just want to stress that these are all my opinions. These are just things I personally would change, and if you liked Season 5, that's great. That's within your own right, but me personally, I thought it was kind of bad. But it's okay. We're going to talk about what I would change, okay? That's the point of the video. This is my journal, and it has my notes about Season 5, Chapter 1, The Crawl. We're going to start off strong with something I did enjoy, which was the cold opening, which was like 12-year-old Will in the Upside Down. I really appreciated that because I thought it was cool to get some kind of insight into what it was like in the Upside Down. What I don't like is that they basically ignore that after like the cold opening. You know, like we don't really talk about it. So right off the bat, I hate Mr. What's-It. I hate the concept of Mr. What's-It, and I think his reveal was just really stupid. We'll get into that next week, but it felt so obvious that that was Vecna, because who else is it going to be? It's way too late in the game to introduce a new villain. Instead of Mr. What's-It, I think they should have utilized Vecna more. Like in Season 4, whenever he's like stalking Max and Chrissy and the other victims, and he like shows them visions, fears, or insecurities, their struggles. I think we could have utilized that a lot more. And I feel like it kind of goes unnoticed the whole season. What I would have done is I would have had him kind of mess with Mike specifically. Mike is kind of underutilized, considering he was the main character in Season 1, basically. Elle and Joyce were kind of the main characters in Season 1, so I think it's interesting that he kind of goes unnoticed after that. So primarily I think Vecna could have messed with Mike, but I think he could have messed with the whole group. He could have shown Dustin some things, like to do with Eddie or Steve. He could have shown Steve some things, you know, like maybe he has some guilt with leaving Dustin and Eddie alone, and so like maybe he feels it's kind of his fault Eddie died. We could mess with Joyce maybe a little bit because she's worried about Will and Jonathan, and she's like still maybe a little guilty about Bob. I really hate the 18-month gap in between Seasons 4 and 5. At the end of Season 4, it felt like they were going to immediately pick up where they left off at the beginning of Season 5. Instead, we get Robin awkwardly explaining what happened in those 18 months. And I just don't think it works, because I just think, what if I am a Hawkins resident and I'm listening to the radio and she's telling me things that I already know because I lived through them, and I'm like, I'm changing the radio station. Sorry, Robin. I think instead we could have just had it pick up immediately after. You know, like the Upside Down is bleeding into the real world, or the right side up. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But most of Hawkins has evacuated, and so it's like a ghost town almost. Or even they've been like moved to a separate part of town where it's maybe not as bad. Then I really don't like the military plot. I felt that was kind of unnecessary even in Season 4, because I thought that Dr. Owens kind of cleared Elle's name, especially when they moved to California. So I'm not entirely sure what the military plot is about. And then, like, yeah, they're gonna be worried about the Upside Down, but then it's like, why didn't Vecna just kill them? I don't love how angry Dustin is. I understand he's grieving, and I understand that it's heavy, the loss of Eddie, but I feel like people would be there for him more, especially if we're doing the 18-month gap. I feel like people are going to be there for him more, when it feels like none of them really are. Lucas and Mike knew him. So why weren't they affected by his death? And why wouldn't they be more open and like accepting of Dustin? Especially after what happened with Max and her grief and how Vecna took advantage of that. If Dustin is going to be grieving, Vecna should like be messing with him. He should be taking advantage of that, showing him Eddie in like crowded rooms, like, oh, there's Eddie, but he's like bleeding and on his deathbed. Or he's just having a conversation and he sees Eddie over there and it's like scary. It's like, whoa, he blinks and he's gone. Now for a second, I really want to talk about the scene where we see that Dustin is being bullied by Jason's friends. Listen, I'm aware that they're nerds, but never has Mike ever said something quite this cringy.
I say kick away. Stop this meathead from reproducing and further infecting the world with his unique brand of idiocy.
Coming from a girl who loves Mike, I hated him in that scene. I'm glad that they kept Will's mouth shut. I'm glad that they didn't make Noah Schnapp utter any ChatGPT written lines. Another thing I really did like was the dynamic between Robin, Steve, Jonathan, and Nancy. I liked the four of them being friends. I wish they were like in the same group more, kind of like Nancy, Steve, Robin, and Eddie. I don't like the like heated rivalry going on between Steve and Jonathan. It feels super out of character for Steve. Jonathan maybe could be a little jealous, but I think it's out of character for him to take it this far. And it feels super out of character for either of them to be fighting over Nancy, because Nancy picked Jonathan in the end. You know, I feel like Steve has enough common sense for that. How has nobody found the tunnels they're using? They're literally all across Hawkins. How has no one stumbled across them? Especially the one that's like in the military base. I feel like that's like an important thing. Will seeing through Holly's eyes felt wasted. I understand that she's Vecna's next victim, but she's not connected to the hive mind. So, like, Will seeing through the Demogorgon makes sense, and him seeing what Vecna sees would make sense, but him seeing the sky spinning while Holly's on the roundabout makes no sense because she isn't connected to the hive mind. It would have been more interesting if he was seeing Holly spinning from where Vecna / Mr. Whatsit was standing, but I don't like Mr. Whatsit, so I don't understand why Elle is just there. Like, they brought back Millie Bobby Brown just to stand. I also think that they don't understand how much Elle has grown over the last 5 seasons, because she's still talking like she does in like season 2. You know, she doesn't have a grasp on the human language. I don't understand why she talks like that. It feels like she has no emotions, which even in season 1 she did have emotion. She was scared, she was happy, she was sad. Like, you could tell. And that was when she was like 11. I think that Joyce has just lost her development. Like, she's had character development over the past 4 seasons, but now she's just there. She's way too scared to let Will out of her sight for someone who basically abandoned them to go find Hopper in Russia. And she, like, tried to reach out, but also not really. I don't understand why Mike was so normal about the concept of Mr. Whatsit. When he's talking to Holly about it, he's just like, yeah, your imaginary friend. You know who helps me? My little D&D character. Given the track record of this group, I think we should be a little more worried. You know, I think we should tell Hopper about this. I think that, like, we should keep an eye on Holly. I don't know. I didn't appreciate the scene of him being a big brother to Holly, because he really isn't. And we don't really see him and Nancy interact, especially after season 1. I feel like the fact that they're siblings goes kind of wasted. I would have liked to see him and Nancy be part of a team this season. Maybe he's in the group with the 4 older kids, if he's not the one being stalked by Vecna. And if Holly's going to be part of the group, have them care is the big thing. If she's gonna be part of the main group, that's fine, you know, whatever. Why don't they care? Why don't they care about the fact that she's seeing a man who's telling her that there are monsters and he's gonna save her from them? That's like the whole point of the show. Monsters. Why are we not, like, concerned about this? When did Will and Max become best friends? This comes up later, like volume 2 especially, but when did they become best friends? They barely interact in seasons 2 and 3. They don't interact in season 4 when she, like, dies. So how come he's, like, her best friend this season? I don't think it makes any sense. I think that they should have given that to Elle, because they did interact in season 3. They became really good friends. She's the one who saved Max from dying at the end of season 4. So I think they could have let Elle go to the hospital maybe and talk to Max about the crawl and, like, just be worried about her. It feels like Elle forgot almost. I really did like the scene at Eddie's grave. I like that Dustin visits Eddie's grave pretty consistently, it seems like. I don't understand why they had to kill the snake. I don't think that was necessary at all, especially since it seemed like that was like a class pet or something. Why did you kill the snake and use its blood to paint things on Eddie's grave? Like, you guys need to be arrested. They almost killed Dustin in that scene. I also think that Hiya. That was an interesting choice for sure. Did they let him pick that part, or was that like on the script? Like the Duffer Brothers were like, okay, now you come in and say Hiya. What is happening? And Dustin's dialogue felt so weird. I understand he's a nerd, but he's talking to a bunch of jocks who don't understand anything.
I was just thinking, in Eddie's last campaign, I defeated Vecna's lead acolyte by casting prismatic spray. Violet prismatic spray is the deadliest. You know why? Causes blindness.
That was so weird. I feel like they aren't concerned about Dustin after that either. Like, they should go look for him. You know, maybe someone who isn't part of the crawl, like maybe Robin or Elle, since she's not doing anything, or Nancy. Maybe they should go look for Dustin, take a walkie-talkie, like, in case something happens, but go find him. He's missing. He's an hour late, which doesn't sound like Dustin. So go look for him. I don't see what's so hard to comprehend about that. Care about your friends. He's one of the only ones from season 1 who still gets consistent screen time with Steve. So why don't we care? Go find him. Elle and Mike's relationship feels so weird. They never say they're in a relationship. You know, it doesn't seem like they're even dating anymore. Especially since she, like, kind of broke up with him in season 4. It felt like she kind of didn't want to do that anymore. It feels so platonic. Very Lavender. I do love the cinematography with the scene of them on the roof of the squawk. I think the sunset's beautiful. I think what Mike's saying is really sweet. I really like him comforting her in this way. I really like her believing that there could be a way after Vecna dies to live comfortably. And I think that's really important for her to hear, because this has been her life forever. You know, since she could control her powers, Dr. Brenner was having her look for Henry, basically. So I think her hearing that there could be a life after that where they just exist, I think that's really important. And I liked it coming from Mike. It felt like seasons 1 and 2 Mike came back for a brief minute when he was nice. I really hate Joyce for not letting Will go with Steve this scene, because really he's the only one who can work it he can work the thing. He's the only one who can work it other than Dustin. So it's like, Steve isn't going to let anything happen to him, first of all. Second of all, what is going to happen while they're just driving around following Hopper in the Upside Down? Like, that's literally all that Steve and Jonathan end up doing. They're just like they're just driving. So why can't Will go? And then I don't like how she's like, no, Will, it's too dangerous. Hey, Jonathan, do you think you can work it? Is he not your son anymore? In season 1, she said, I'm gonna like try and be there for you more because I know I haven't, I've been so busy. What happened to that? She just like doesn't care about him anymore. I understand that he's like a fully grown adult now, but he's still your kid, and if it's oh so dangerous, why can he go, but not Will? I also wish that Jonathan had been more on Will's side, because Will's like, well, like, I helped him set it up. He like looks at Jonathan for help, and Jonathan's like, I can do it, it's just a wheel. What happened to Jonathan in season 4 when he was like, I'm your big brother, I'm gonna be there for you, and, you know, like, I see you, I love you. Except for when our mom tells me to go hang out with Steve Harrington, I'm gonna go do that. Sexual tension. The conflict between Karen and Ted, I feel like, could add a little more weight to the season. Like, maybe if Nancy and Mike were aware of that, and, like, that's also on their mind, and Vecna's using that, you know, like, the fact that their parents are fighting all the time, this, and that, like, maybe let's use it more. I really did like Will seeing through the Demogorgon. I thought that was an interesting concept, and I feel like we could have done more with that if we had more Demogorgons this season. But I feel like that could have been really cool if he were with Steve during that point, and maybe someone else goes with them, you know, maybe Jonathan goes, like, to keep an eye on them. But I feel like it could have been really interesting if he started seeing the Demogorgon while they're following Hopper in the van. That could have been really cool. That could have been, like, kind of scary. Maybe they lose Hopper at that point because Steve, like, stops the van because Will's freaking out like he does most of the time. So, like, they lose where Hopper is, and it's, like, this whole thing, and they're like, guys, what's going on? And he's like, I don't know, something's wrong with Will. Will's freaking out. He's like, and, like, Noah Schnapp went crazy this season just for them to basically ignore him after the 4th episode, which we'll get there when we get there. But, yeah, it just felt like they don't use the fact that Noah is an incredible actor. Like, I just always think about season 2 and how crazy it was, because he's like 13 years old and doing all that. I really do love Nell Fisher as Holly. I think that she did an incredible job, and I really did like her going to Holly the Heroic for comfort after hearing her parents arguing. She's like holding it, and she's laying in bed. She's crying, you know, like she's an incredible actress, Nell is, and Holly is just going through it, and so then the Demogorgon comes in and is like crashing through the ceiling. I thought that was all really well done. I just don't know how to feel about it being Holly as the main focus. I don't know how I feel about Holly joining the group. I understand that it's like, oh, she's getting older and so it's time for her to find out, but I don't think she needed to, you know? If anyone's gonna know, I feel like we should tell Karen. I feel like we need some more adults on the scene. I understand that Steve, Robin, Nancy, and Jonathan are technically adults, but they're not acting like it. And so that's kind of where my thoughts on episode 1 ends. So far, what we have that I would change about season 5 is I don't think Holly should have been the main focus. I don't think we needed Mr. What's-It. I think we could have done with just Vecna like we did in season 4. I wish that Elle did some more. I wish that they used her more. I really wish that she and Hopper weren't having this huge conflict fight, because why? It just feels like season 2 again. I think Will should have gone with Steve. I think that would have been great. I think that could have furthered the plot. And I think that Vecna should have, like, tried to get Mike, maybe. And maybe he did. Maybe he gets Mike, and he, like, falls into a coma like Max, and it's like this huge thing, and so then Mike is the focus of the next episode. It's not the vanishing of Holly Wheeler, it's the vanishing of Mike Wheeler, maybe, except he didn't really vanish, he just died. It really wasn't a bad episode overall. I really did like it. The dialogue just felt bad. Like, that was my main issue the whole time I was watching. I was like, this feels so unnatural. They just keep, like, talking. They're saying too many things, and hardly any of it makes sense. Especially Mike and Lucas's dialogue at the beginning. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you heard some things you could maybe agree with. If not, let me know. Tell me why maybe you thought Mr. What's-It was a good addition. Or if I missed something, let me know. Because I am going to get into more things later on. I just shouldn't talk about them now because that'll spoil it later. Like how I feel about Camazots and how I feel about the Max reveal and all that stuff. And Mr. What's-It as a whole. I should do a video about Mr. What's-It. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you could consider subscribing, I would really, really appreciate it because this is my new thing for a whole 9 weeks. We're going to do 8 videos about the 8 episodes and then a bonus surprise episode at the end. You might like it. If you're a fan of Stranger Things, you probably will like it because it's a huge topic among the fandom. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe and like the video, leave a comment if you liked it, and yeah, I'll see you next week. Bye!